you. So I don't know if you've seen some of the new footage that's come out of Portland, Oregon this weekend, but it's incredibly disturbing. Where we left it last week was right after the Senate Judiciary hearing, and it was really frustrating to watch. The testimonies were excellent. Andy Ngo was there, Secretary of Homeland Security was there, a few local Democratic officials from the Portland area were there. The hearing basically the focus was on Portland, Oregon, and what's been going on there the past few months, and it was about peaceful protesting, police response, the secret police that were there, Antifa and the dangers of them, and a lot of focus on it was sort of Antifa and the response of the federal agents. And the frustrating thing is you had people there, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Andy Ngo, with personal accounts of Antifa, and the Director of Homeland Security, who's studied Antifa, worked with them, Andy Ngo, who was personally attacked by them. They had tons of example weapons that they've confiscated. They had lots of video footage, and you still saw a failure with every Democratic official to openly condemn Antifa and the violence that they've been causing. You had two local Democratic senators who failed to acknowledge the violence that was going on in Portland, saying that the federal officers who were there were antagonizing their residents and arresting people that weren't doing anything, and they're antagonizing the peaceful protesters, and everything that's going on is their fault. Well, that was a complete lie. The federal agents that came in were not secret police. In fact, they were all identifiable. They were there by request of local police or of local federal agents to protect the federal courthouse. That was all they were there to do, and they were stationed inside the federal courthouse. And the reason they were called to protect the federal courthouse is because it's been, at that point that they were called in, it had been under attack for like 29 days in a row or something like that, where protesters have tried to burn it down. They actually did burn a fire inside the building. They completely defaced the whole building with graffiti and destruction. They had to build sort of a temporary wall around the building so protesters wouldn't come and burn it down. Protesters were throwing trash, burnt trash that was on fire, explosives, frozen water bottles at officers there, and antagonizing them and staying there after they were told time and time again to leave, that this was not an area that they needed to be in. So this was actually what was happening in Portland. And the videos you saw of the police officers going and arresting protesters, which were not protesters, they were already told this was a riot. They were already told to go home at these points. And in some of these instances, there were curfews that were way in effect, so these people were out way over curfew, and obviously they did this for safety. When you saw those officers going in and arresting some of these people, these were people that were already identified as committing crimes towards federal agents or the federal building. So these were not random incidences at all. And the reason they had to go in those cars is because the police officers can't go in to a group of 400 people who are actively trying to attack them to make an arrest. So they had to do it when people were a little more alone, and they had to do it in a vehicle because it wasn't safe for them to do it any other time. So this is what's been going on in Portland, and you have local officials who are demonizing the federal agents and police even still, when police are out there trying to keep the community safe every single night. So this has been happening, and even at the congressional hearing, you had the local Democratic senators for the Portland area. You had them basically demonizing the police, demonizing the federal agents, and sort of shoving under the rug the violence that has been perpetuated by the rioters. And if you want to know, at this point, 277, I haven't looked at the numbers after this weekend, it's probably a lot more, but from last week before Friday night, 277 officers have or injuries have been ensued on officers. 3 of them might be permanently blind because of the green lasers that the rioters are shining in their eyes that actually make people blind and can burn you. That's how, they're commercial grade lasers, but that's how powerful they are. So after the hearing and during the hearing, you had the local Democratic officials, they basically came up with the deal with federal agents, and the deal was, we don't want you here. How can we fix this? And basically the federal agents are, well, if you can prove to us that you can protect this building, if you can call in more local law enforcement to protect the building, not tell them to stand down, then we can leave. So the local officials agreed with this, so they're telling the public, oh, the federal agents are gone, we're okay, we don't need them, they're terrorizing our public, when in actuality they know they're actually still there. They're just trying not to engage because they called in extra local law enforcement. That was the whole deal. And federal agents have made it perfectly clear. They put out public statements. No, in fact, we are not leaving until we know this is safe. They've just stopped engaging as much because more local law enforcement is there. But since this has happened, the Democrats have tried to say that it's a lot safer now that the federal agents are gone or not engaging, whatever. They're spinning it one way, but the truth is something different. That's why I said whatever. So they're basically saying now that the agents aren't engaging, it's a lot safer here and it's a lot more peaceful. But every single night since then, it has been declared a riot by local law enforcement. And let me tell you what happened this past weekend. It's very disturbing. First of all, they tried this past weekend, Saturday night, they tried to burn down the police union building. They actually set a fire inside the building. There was a 78-year-old woman and a 77-year-old woman in the area who actually had Black Lives Matter signs and were supporting Black Lives Matter, who came out and tried to defend the building, saying, hey, please stop burning it down. This is our neighborhood. Residents live here. There's a lot of Black people that live here that you're hurting right now. Like, you're not doing anything good. You're just hurting the residents, and we're innocent, and we're for what you say you're here for, so what are you doing? She had a white liquid. This was a 78-year-old woman on a cane who said this. She had white liquid thrown all over her head. She was cussed at by the group. They basically ganged up on her. A grown man, he was a young man, but a grown man who was very tall, got up in her face to the point where he was leaning down on her like that, cussing at her and yelling at her. But she's a brave little woman. She did an interview after that. I don't think she's stopping anytime soon. But footage of that came out. Footage of them going into residential areas at this point. Now, this is a new thing for them. They're actually in neighborhoods now around Portland. There was some footage of people running around. The cops came into a residential area trying to disperse the rioters and get them away from the residents' homes. I saw footage of a man either at his back door or his side door on his porch, and dozens of rioters are running through his backyard, standing in his backyard. They're on his porch. Some of them are just standing on his porch. Some of them are running by as he's saying, get the F off my property, get the F off my property. I saw more videos of people in front of residential apartment buildings shining flashlights into the building, saying we know where you live. We're going to burn this whole thing down. I saw footage of another girl in a residential neighborhood yelling at a resident, saying if anything on your property is damaged, that's the fault of the cops. These are the scumbags that are basically running the city that Democrats are completely failing to condemn. So at this point, you're either voting for law and order, or you're voting for people to come and show up in your backyard and antagonize you and yell at grandmothers, a 78-year-old woman. Let me know your thoughts on what's happening. How do you think this is going to end up? This is going to be pretty interesting as well. I don't know. I don't know how anyone in this city, if Portland doesn't flip red, I think I give up on humanity. I think I just completely give up. I feel bad for these residents, but at the same time, these are the people that you're voting in for office. I've realized the past few years how important it is to pay attention to local politics, because something like this can start to happen in your neighborhood. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in a long time go on for this long, but this is how serious paying attention to some of these local elections is. And a lot of people argue, well, it's not all the politicians' fault. Well, it's the politicians who are telling the police officers to stand down. Yes, it is their fault. They're telling them to stand down, and instead of condemning these rioters and telling them this is not okay, they're shoving it all under the rug. They're saying these are peaceful protesters, and they keep condemning the president. By the way, the president, Donald Trump, the Antifa people, the people that are doing the rioting, they're anti-fascists. That's what they are. But the funny thing about Donald Trump is he's very moderate. He's not a typical Republican. He's pretty moderate. And Donald Trump is actually the first U.S. president, U.S. presidential candidate in history to be pro-gay marriage. Obama wasn't even pro-gay marriage when he was a presidential candidate. President Trump has done more for minority communities than any president in my lifetime. And he just signed an executive order that I'll talk about later, helping a lot of people. So this is pure silliness. The local officials are obsessed with Trump and obsessed with making him look bad. And now they're putting their residents' basically safety at risk and property at risk. And I hope, I don't know if they can sue, but I hope they sue. I hope they do something, because yes, this is directly local political officials that this is happening because of. They can't control everything, but they can fix a lot of things. They can fix a lot. Okay, well, that's all I have for you right now. Thank you. Bye.